So Mike and Andrew, our founder and head of platform development, will be running this roadmap. I'm probably the most excited about this session. This is a roadmap session like none other. And the reason I say that is it's not going to just be a bunch of slideware, planning. You're actually going to see some great demos and code. And some of you may, if you haven't been on the platform a while, might get lost. It's pretty deep. These guys are our top brains in the company, and I'm just super excited to have them share our roadmap. So, without further ado, Mike, if you want to go ahead and kick it off, you have the mic now.
Hello to everyone. First of all, to a little bit correct.
Having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Mike. I don't know if it's your microphone.
Like this one?
A little bit better.
Let me try to switch a microphone to the. Just a second. Oh no, I cannot. Can you hear like that better, or still?
A little bit better. I would put the volume up higher.
How about this one?
Much better.
Much better. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, and I want to correct Mark a little bit. Andrew is the founder of the company the same way as I am, so it would be correct that we're both founders of the company. And to let you guys know how important this meeting for me is, there is 56 minutes between the Uruguay and Saudi Arabia, and I have a beer in my fridge, and I'm presenting. Okay. So let's start. As many of you probably have heard, we've just recently led the next round of investments between Acumatica and AKKR, or led by AKKR. And this gives us a very good opportunity to invest. And out of that one, the biggest part of our cost increase, over the 50% of our cost increase, will go to R&D. And out of these R&D investments, around 50% will go into the platform. And that indicates how important the platform for us and how much of investments we do make into the R&D. And that's probably stress a little bit that we are more a technology company rather than a marketing company. If it's good or bad, it's difficult to say, but we're a technology company. And with that one, it's of course interesting for you probably, and for us, it's also important to understand how we're going to invest the money into the platform, and what are our real priority from the platform standpoint of view. Why do you want to invest into that? What you can expect there, and so on and etc. And over here, I will start with these slides that indicates Acumatica XRP priorities. So our priority number one is a platform development and modernization. And when we say development, it's probably understandable. We're adding more features, we're improving the platform and so on. But the modernization is also an important item here. When we first started with Acumatica, it has been more than 10 years ago. And since this 10 years, quite a lot of technologies changed, get obsolete, has been removed, and so on. And what was modern and what was the good ideas 10 years ago nowadays becomes a little bit rusty, a little bit aged. And of course, on our side, as a product that has been invested for 10 years, we do have quite a lot of components or pieces of software that has been developed 5-10 years ago and still in the product. And from that standpoint of view, we do invest quite heavily into the modernization and updating our technology, as we see the being cut of the edge software from the technology standpoint of view to be extremely important for us. So platform development and modernization, one of the biggest area of our investments. Our next priority in this list is the performance and scalability improvements. We do have a situation where our customer base is growing and our customers are growing as well. We start to have a customer who do have a really large database, large volume of transactions, have very high demand towards to the reliability of the software and predictability of the software performance and response. And with that one, we do collect this information and we do allocate a dedicated special resources who dedicated to work on performance and scalability improvements. And you do see this item with every new release that we are releasing. And I will be telling later on what you're going to expect and where we're investing here. The next item that is extremely important for us and that makes Acumatica to be a platform rather than just a set of dev tools is a customization facilities. And when we're talking about the customization facilities, we're talking about the code customization that allows ISV to customize the software and extend its functionality. And we clearly continue to invest into that with the platform development and modernization. But we also see a very big value and a very big priority for us, simplifying the customization tools. That's what we call low-code, no-code customization, where we still see the ISVs to implement the ISV functionality and additional features for the product using the current technology set. But during the implementation, we're considering to provide consultants with as easy and as user-friendly tools that do not require special programming skills as possible. And we will be investing a lot into that to simplify the customization process and providing the people with option to customize the software without having the real programming skills or being a hardcore developer. And the last item that we identified as a priority for us is improving reporting capabilities. Doing our latest NPS during the summer, which eventually showed something like plus 17 across all the users. We also analyzed the response where people were saying what do they miss in the software and what they do like to improve. And we discovered that the reporting capabilities is probably the most demanded and most wanted item between our customers. That clearly sets our priority for a priority for us. And I think this priority is also understandable because as a ERP users, you want not only to put the data into the system, but you also want to extract and analyze them. So the system guides you what kind of decisions you need to do and what kind of exceptions you need to watch and monitor. So with that one, I will move to the next slide, but I think it was important to specify what are our priority and where we focus our development efforts for the platform. With that one, I will move to the next slide, and I will talk a little bit about platform development and modernization. From that standpoint of view, of course, we're implementing a lot of smaller items and a lot of small enhancements, but the three big themes for us for this and next years are the items below. First one is upgrade or improvement of our user interface that we call user interface 2.0. And our main goal for user interface, for the new user interface, is to eliminate the web form technology. I will have a few slides explaining why we want to eliminate the web forms and how we're going to do that. But from you, like from people we talk with, who ask, and guys, we want to be the user interface to be more modern, more responsive, more user-friendly. And that's exactly the reason why we do it, and I will explain later how. The second item that is essential for us is improving our BQL library. And BQL is probably an essential part of the Acumatica platform because almost Acumatica is a data-centered software. And most of the things that you do is you deal with the database. And BQL is essentially an ORM technology and business query language that is used by somebody joking that it's a Bulanov query language named under Andrew Bulanov. But that's a technology that essentially provides you work with the database. And originally it was implemented through the generic through the generics and provide a lot of the functionality, but we do receive a lot of complaints that it's difficult to read and BQL is difficult to understand, and it does have some kind of shortcomings. So we took this input seriously and we worked a lot on improving it, and Andrew will make a demo of what kind of changes we make with the BQL library, how we do integrate with LinkU, and what kind of improvements you can expect in this area. The next focus area for us is improving the extensions functionality. As you know, about 2 or 3 years ago, we introduced the extensions functionality that essentially allows you to write the custom ISV code or modify the business logic without direct reference to the business object. And this technology is kind of unique to Acumatica because it allows to create an extensions of the business functionality without depending on the specific version of the Acumatica. As well, it allows you multiple layers of the extensions and so on and etc. However, we want to move this technology further down the road, and we also want to use this technology inside of the application itself by segregating certain business parts of the functionality into the extensions and using them across on the system. That will provide a better decomposition of the business logic. As well, it will allow you as a customizer to override and customize such functionality across the system. We also implement a unit test support around the extensions, and Andrew will make a demo of this functionality later on. As I mentioned, we implement more small enhancement and modernizations over the platform. And with that one, I will move to the next topic of my slides, performance and scalability improvements. First of all, one big item that has been implemented over the last year is we implemented a telemetry across all the SaaS instances of the Acumatica. And telemetry is extremely important because essentially it logs every operation on the Acumatica. Of course, this login made in anonymized way. That means that we don't know what kind of data has been submitted and so on, but we know what kind of business operations has been executed and what kind of CPU, database, and other resources can be consumed for executing this query. And now, having this information and having a very large database, we do have a very good statistical and analysis tool that allows us to understand and watch where do we have a performance problems, what kind of screens or functionality is most consumed by the users, why we do have certain kind of disruptions and problems related with the memory, CPU, database access, and so on and etc. And we do have a dedicated team that takes and analyzes this data and creates a set of issues and improvements to both applications and platform team to implement how to say it, not predictive, but performance troubleshooting before the troubles occur. That means that we going ahead of you and we're trying to implement and resolve the issues before you start to notice them. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, unfortunately, because in many cases we're facing with the problems that none of our customers was facing before. Sometimes it's a new functionality that resolves this problem and so on and etc. But now we have a very good tool to assess and proactively monitor any kind of performance and stability issues. And as a result of that, with the next release, we will be implemented quite a lot of improvements, starting with the runtime and static code validation of the potential performance issues. That's part of that you've seen with Vladimir demonstration of the Acuminata before. There is a quite a number of the runtime validations that we're adding to the code, and that all comes to the ISV certification tools and our static code validation tools that we developed deploying for you. And the main point of this functionality is exactly prevent the situation that can potentially lead to the performance issues. And we're going to be more and more hardcore on that, and you will see more and more logic in our platform that basically does a validation and tells you that, okay, by making this code, you're potentially facing a validation issue. On top of that, we also investigate the areas where we do have a performance issue based on the architecture of the software or based on the code written, and we implemented a number of improvements related with how code is handled and how the operation is handled inside of the write file. For example, we implement the inquiry delegates optimization that helps you to pass the filtering parameters in a very simple and fashionable method from the when you create inquiry with the custom delegates and analyze large amounts of data. We do perform a number of query cache optimization to prevent an excessive calls to the database and reading or changed data from the cache. For example, we analyze if you need only one record from the database, and we automatically append the query with the top one to avoid an excessive load of the data from the database, and so on, etc. So there is a lot of these small kind of changes that essentially will result more effective and more performance optimized runtime that you either can use it as a developer or you will automatically benefit as a developer. We also work on just improving our runtime from the performance standpoint of view, and one thing that right now in the process and hopefully will be released with the next release is a lazy graph initialization, where right now our graph object or controller, when it's initialized, the time of the initialization directly depends on the number of the data access class that has been accessed from the graph. And we're introducing technologies and performance improvement that will subscribe the event handlers on demand basis rather than initializing all of them during the request, and therefore reducing the runtime execution time on both in terms of memory and the CPU. And that one will result just faster software, which is always good. So talking about this performance and scalability improvements, I will move to the next topic over here on low code and no code customization. And in this area, we work on few elements. First of all is right now we're working on reworking and improving our workflow engine. And when we're talking about the workflow engine, some of you probably faced with the automation concept in Acumatica and the fact that you can create automation steps and assign what kind of actions and what field are available, disabled, or required on the screen. But this concept looks very nice when you hear about that. But when you try to use it, it becomes very difficult because it's difficult logically to understand how it works. We thought a lot about that, and we still want to use this functionality because it's a big part of the automation and customization in Acumatica, but we want to make it available towards to the consultants and the end users. And with that one, we're working on the new workflow engine where we implement a new state controller. It's basically a logical condition that can be applied to the business object where you can analyze any kind of fields and return true or false based on this analysis. So that's a simple kind of a Lambda function that you can program and say that in this condition it's true, in this condition it's false. And then the state controller can be applied to the fields or elements on the data entry screen or any kind of screen to indicate if the field is available, if the field is required, if the field is visible or not visible. So basically, and it's not only field but action as well. And that will give you a very, or not you, but a consultant actually, because for that one you don't need to be a programmer, a very simple way to customize or alter the form behavior without doing the actual program. The second thing that we're working on is a customizable actions that right now, if you want to register a report or register an inquiry and navigate from the screen to this report or inquiry, you need to do a programming. You need to put a PX exception statement, and you need to pass the parameters that you need to pass to the new screen, and you need to navigate to new screen. What we're doing right now, we implementing the customizable action where you can customize this behavior by just indicating what is the screen you want to navigate to and what parameter you want to pass using a certain kind of wizard, bypassing the programming need for that. And that can be included into customization. With that one, you can greatly extend the screen and implement a custom actions or custom navigation without doing an actual programming. We're also enhancing the workflow engine itself by changing its behavior. So it will be easier to program, where we introduce what is the workflow state of the document, what kind of transition can be done, what kind of action can be done on transition, what kind of events need to be triggered on transition, and so on, etc. And this is a part of the big work of reworking the workflow engine. And part of that you will see with the next release. Part of that will come up with the 1 or 2 release down the road, because the item is quite substantial and we have quite a lot of ideas around that. The other functionality that we're working right now is customizing data entry forms with attributes. And right now, many of you probably use the attributes mechanism, where you can go to the attributes and then you can assign these attributes to the inventory item or to opportunity, and then during data entry, user will be requested for entering these attributes together with the records. And then these attributes can be utilized or used from the reporting. What we're doing right now, we're implementing a generic functionality that, using certain kind of data wizard, will allow you to attach this attribute to any data entry form that has a note ID. And we'll use the key-value extension in the database to store this data together with the original records, so the data are available and curable from the reports and inquiries. And that will be a graphical designer that doesn't require any kind of programming skills from you. That means that you can go configure the attribute, and then you can go to the screen and say, okay, I want to add this, and this attributes. And that is a part of the our way towards to the consultant-friendly customization framework that doesn't require code or customization. We also work on per tenant customization, where the customization can be published per individual tenant, but not applied to all the companies in the database. And hopefully we will release it early next year. And the next item, that is a long-term planning, is a scripting customization layer, where we want to introduce a scripting customization layer between the Acumatica business objects and the user interface. In order to understand that better, consider the Visual Basic inside of the Excel, where you have an Excel that is written with a low-level technology on C++ and C#, and then you have a Visual Basic on top of that, that essentially doesn't require any kind of advanced programming skills, and just operate with the object model of the Excel to execute certain kind of actions. And our approach and concept is to implement exactly similar kind of functionality on top of Acumatica forms. And that will be our approach towards to that. So that's our items that we work right now in terms of the customization and improving the customization functionality. And clearly we're implementing some small enhancements and improvements on top of that. But that one will be you will be notified with the release notes, and we will communicate them separately, as over here we don't want to go to every single item. And the next one is a reporting capabilities. Once again, we took the feedback, and we will be investing the next half year into the improving reporting capabilities. Some of the functionality you will see in the demo that will follow my presentation. Like the new pivot design, and you will see how you can apply the pivots and use them now in a very user-friendly fashion. Preview functionality in the report designer. But we also will focus on the 3 key initiatives here, is improved RAM designer, where we want to improve the analytical report management and improve the designer to make it available for the user and avoid the common mistakes and implement a number of the requests that are very common and very popular between the value-added resellers and the users. We're going to improve the generic inquiry and improve the generic inquiry designer to implement better relationship management and relation suggestions, implement drag and drop for moving the fields across the designer, and generally simplifying that from the configuration standpoint of view. And we will continue to invest into the generic inquiry as our main reporting tool. And we will start work on implementing a basic layout editor on top of the generic inquiry. So the creation of the basic analytical report, not printed form, can be created out of the generic inquiry with adding a grouping, subtotal, and stuff like that. Of course, we will be improving our dashboards and adding more visualization to the dashboards, but this item is not indicated there. So that's our priorities with the reporting capabilities. And with that one, I will stop talking about the priorities, and I will stop over one items, what we're going to do with the user interface and what are the steps from the technical standpoint of view, and what is the reason for us to eliminate the web forms. And then I will make two short demos, which maybe not very development related, but I believe they're nice, and I believe they're somewhat development related. Okay, so user interface 2.0 and what to expect and how will it work. Before I will start with what we're going to do, I will stop on how our current front-end architecture is organized and why is it organized like that one. Originally, when we designed Acumatica, we only had web forms. We didn't have a mobile client, we didn't have a API, and with that one, the only piece of technology that we were using is a piece of technology that is in red. We were using the web forms, and we implemented a data source that was talking with the graph using specific graph API, and then we were presenting it into the browser. Later on, we started with adding more functionality, and we added a screen-based API for the import-export engine. We added a contract-based API on top of that. We added a mobile client that also consumed the import-export engine. But when we were adding this one, we needed some additional information or meta information to indicate how the mobile API or screen-based API have to work with the import-export engine. And for that one, we were using the web forms and information in the web forms to take information about the keys and how to operate with the graph object. And we added up with the current architecture that you can see on this slide, where we have a web forms and we have a screen schema, which is a special structure which consumed by mobile API, screen-based API, and contract-based API. And mobile API, screen-based API, and contract-based API, I relies on import-export engine, while the web forms using a data source technology from Microsoft to access the graph. And that becomes a problem. Why that becomes a problem? First of all, we have two ways to deal with the graphs, import-export engine and data source, which becomes a burden because they're pretty much doing the same job. Number two, which probably is a bigger concern, is a web form technology by itself becomes a legacy, and it's going to be obsolete in 2-3 years down the road. That means that less and less support, it doesn't improve from the performance standpoint of view, it's only subjected to the bug fixing. And the web form technology by itself is quite heavy. That means that if we'll take a look on the distribution on the CPU consumed by the request, we will see that around 30% of the CPU consumed by just web forms, not executing the business logic, not doing anything else. Just the web forms itself consumes 30% of the CPU during runtime. And also with that one, we don't have any public API available for implementing the script customization engine. That means that both the data source and the import-export engine consuming the graph API, and graph API will be changing when you're customizing it, when we're changing the business logic, and so on, etc. That makes this technology not super resistant towards to the upgrades and customization compatibility during the upgrade. Does persistent virus, but there is no special mechanism to do that. With that one, now take a look how we want it to look in the future. And that's probably like an ideal picture on how we want it to look and be implemented. So first of all, we want to replace or implement a public graph API on top of our current import-export engine. That means that our business object or graph communicates with outside world for certain kind of API that we fix with the version, and we try not to change it when we change the business logic. This is important because it creates a point on top of this public graph API where we can inject a customization script engine, where we basically can interrupt the events coming from the API or browser or mobile and execute certain kind of script on top of the public API exposed by the business object. That's our long-term goal. And with that one, it will allow us to create this customization very resistant towards to the upgrade. That means that customization, because they're consuming the API, will not get broken with upgrades, and upgrade procedure will be greatly simplified. We still want to keep our functional extension for ISV products and for internal business logic. That means that they're not going any way. And customization script engine is more a consultant tools for the implementation. Then on top of this public graph API, we want to implement a web API on top of our mobile API. That means that we want to develop the mobile API towards to the web API that use as a primary interaction point between the browser or mobile client. We don't want mobile client and the browser to use a different technology or different endpoints. And the last piece of that is we clearly want to implement client-side rendering. That means we don't want to render HTML on the server, and we want to use a modern techniques where we just pass the form definition to the client, and we're using a modern frameworks to generate HTML and render on the browser. So with that one, we're really focusing on replacing the web forms and moving the payload associated with HTML generation towards to the browser, which will further improve our performance and scalability. Summarizing that, web forms technology replaced with modern web API technology. Mobile and web forms are uniform and can be unified as a single component. Public graph API does not depend on the user interface definition and uniform for external access introducing a public contract. Public graph API creates a point for implementing a customization script engine, and public graph API creates a point for implemented simplify integration test against the business object. That's more our internal benefit that we will get from that. So this is our ideal world. But now if you will ask yourself, can we move from where we're right now towards to this one in one shot? And the answer is probably no, because we already have a lot of the customization, because the scope of changes is really big. And if we just make it as a one project, you maybe will never see. So we'll have a plan how we're going to go into that. And in that plan, we will execute in 3 steps. So first of all, we will start moving the communication channel between the browser and graph towards to the web API. And we can do it piece by piece, method by method. That means that we don't need to do it instantaneously as one big step. But right now, if you ever take a look how our client script works, you can see that we load HTML one time, and after that, we basically communicate with the server through the callbacks. And we will be moving these callbacks towards to the new web API one by one. And with that one, we will immediately get benefits of improving the performance, because we will be derouting this request from the web forms towards to the web API. And it will allow us implementing them one by one. On step 2, we will work on our import export engine to expose public graph API that will be uniform for all front-end engines. That means that contract-based API, screen-based API, and web API will all be consuming the same public graph API exposed from the import export engine, or we basically will rename it probably. Then on step 2, we will replace web forms with a new rendering engine. We are evaluating the technology for that. For now, we can say for sure it will not be an Angular, and it will not be what the stupid Facebook technology, React, which we evaluated with our new navigation technology. We shortlisted 2 components. We will announce one that we will be using once we made the final decision. We're actively prototyping it right now, and both are quite prominent, have some cons and pros. And on step 3, we will work on injecting the script and customization lane in front of Acumatica public graph API engine. Question, what is the timeline for that one? And the answer that timeline is probably the next couple of years. You will start to see some elements of that with the 19R1, and most probably it will take us around across 2019 to implement these changes, and maybe some pieces will stay there of web forms stay there for longer. It's a long path. The good news, we will implement it step by step, and it will be transparent towards to the functionality that you have implemented. Will be very minor changes, and you will immediately start to feel improvements in the performance, and we will be benefiting from that. So that's essentially end of my presentation, what we're going to do with the front end. And before passing it to the Andrew, I will make a 2 short demos on what kind of things you can expect with the next release and what we are working on. I will minimize my presentation, and I will start with the very simple one, is a report preview. So one thing that we implemented is a report preview function in the report designer. So you can see this is a traditional report designer, but I have a new button here for the preview. When I click on this button, the application will contain to the server, will execute request on the server, and will show me a sample of how my report will look like. To see that it's not a fake demo, what I will do, I will make very basic changes over here. And I will click on my preview buttons. So you can see that, okay, after a few seconds, just give it a time, because it was basically refreshing the data. I can see the invoice as I've changed it. Very simple, courtesy to Vladimir Panchenko, who did implemented this functionality, but surprisingly we had a lot of requests. It has been number 2 item under this undo functionality that we've implemented in our last release. And to see that undo is working, we can replace it once again. Once again, give it a few seconds to refresh the data from the server, and we can see how it looks like. Okay, that has been simple, but we thought that it will be nice to demo because it has been quite high demanded item, and it shows that we are listening what you are telling to us, and we're trying to improve here. The next item is very exciting for me because I think that it greatly improves both customization and presentation capability of Acumatica. That's the work that we did on the pivot tables. And give me a few seconds to log in. So over here, you can see that I do have a basic generic inquiry, which essentially just takes the data from the GL transaction expenses and link them towards to the business account they're related to and inventory if it's related to the inventory. And that's quite a decent set because I'm taking all the data from the demo set for all the years. So it's 8,000 records and 400 plus pages. So what I will do right now, I will say, okay, I want to analyze this data. And we always get a complaint that there is no subtotals, we cannot see how many data that and so on. So what I will do, I will go over here and you can see there is a new button here, Save as Pivot. Save as Pivot. So I will click on that one and I will provide what kind of pivot here. I will call it expense analysis. Oops, sorry for my English. And we'll hit OK button. So what will happen with that one? The system will create me a new tab, like I'm creating a new filter, but instead of creating me a new filter, it's switching me to design mode. So now I will do a few very simple things. I will put my GL account and my GL account description as a rows. I will put my transaction date as a columns, and I will take my amount of transaction as a value. And I will indicate over here, for example, that I don't want to subtotal that. And I will indicate that for my transaction date, I want to analyze by years. So I will say that I want to run that by years. And I also will take a business account name. Oh, okay. And I will put it as a filter. Once I'm done that, I will switch it towards to the design mode. And what I will see here, I will see the same data. What did I did wrong? because I see a little bit few data than I was expecting. Just a second. Okay, sorry, I put 2 transactions date here with the wrong priorities. So let me remove one. So I will transaction date and I will run it for years. And I will switch towers to the pivot mode. So you can see, I can see a very accurate pivot. Essentially, I can go through that. I can drill down through the data. I can easily switch between my records and my analysis. And I essentially can filter it. For example, over here, I will say that my account contains telecom. Okay, and I can drill down from here. So the main benefit from that is it's essentially improves the reporting capability of Acumatica. And before that, we had a pivot functionality, but in order to create a report or create a view, user need to go to edit to sitemap, share it, and so on, etc. But we made it as easy as having the predefined field. I think it's just great, and it's example of work we're doing on the report. Okay, with that one, I want to end my part of the presentation, and I want to invite Andrew, who will do a more hardcore programming stuff and will show what kind of real developer enhancement we're doing with the platform. Andrew, can you share your screen and take it over from me?
Yes. Okay, hello everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I am a bit surprised that functional, or also called shared business logic extensions are so popular and mentioned already by Gabriel and Sergey Marinich, because I wanted to pay quite a bit of attention to this functionality. So most probably I will not explain this slide. Sergey Marinich already covered this. Our reusable business objects is a piece of code that is used in many places in the system, and this piece of code is separated from real objects, and this piece of code may be covered by unit tests. And I will switch directly to the cause why we came with this approach and how we are going to benefit from this approach in the upcoming release. Let me show you how our code is implemented right now. If we go to sales order, for example, to sales order, everybody of you, I think, know this huge screen, very popular among our customers. Probably it wastes a half of electricity required to run Acumatica. And search, for instance, for the word discount. We will see that there are a lot of occurrence of references to discount-related functionality inside the screen. You see, we need to expose discount details. We need to declare filter to handle discount recalculation. We need to declare pattern to run discount recalculation and put calls to our discount engine in many places of our code. The same is true for tax business logic, tax-related business logic, for multi-currency related business logic, and for sales price related logic. If we look into P or order entry, we will see that discount is referenced a lot of times as well here. So we came with the approach that will allow developers to extract this shared logic from our graphs and place it in a separate extensions, and will allow keep this extensions disconnected from real objects, and will allow us to test these extensions with unit testing framework. As Sergey Marinich mentioned it already, in the prior release, we already implemented 4 extensions and connected them to 4 business objects. It is CR opportunities, CR quotations, field services orders, and field services appointments. But these extensions that can be found under extension folder in our PX object solution, PX object folder. These extensions do not include a lot of code yet. As Sergey mentioned, it includes mappings required to connect this extension to particular objects. It contains interfaces to interact with real objects, and it is still dependent on helpers and attributes defined in other places of Acumatica. On using multi-currency functionality as an example, I will try to show you how it is hard now to debug and maintain business logic distributed among attributes, and how we want to move it into a single place, functional extension, and how it is already done and will be available in the upcoming release 2018 R2. Let me go to our new multi-currency implementation and compare it with old one. In the presentation, you will find this functionality on multi-currency extension slide. Before this release, to implement multi-currency, we widely used Acumatica attributes. If we go into some Acumatica instance and review any multi-currency enabled form, we will see several identical fields available on each such form. If we go to journal entry, we will see here multi-currency control that consists of currency ID, currency rate, special button that allow you to switch to from currency view to base currency view, and a panel that allow you to specify currency rate and allow you to review rate reciprocal. The same is true for all currency enabled form. If you think about how it is implemented, here we need to specify vendor first. You understand that we need to add several virtual fields to our main object. We need to add some views that will display to us currency information. We need to add some buttons that will allow us to switch from currency view to foreign currency, from base currency view to foreign currency view, and vice versa. If we look into our current implementation, let's go to our currency manager model. and review attribute, currency info attribute, we will find here several fields that we will add dynamically. We will add dynamically to our base cache fields. Let me find out how it is done. You see, in cache attached event, we will add this field, virtual field, to our main object. Then, because they are a virtual field, we are required to subscribe this field to some delegates that will implement field selection and field updating logic. Again, it is done dynamically in cache attached event. If we go to this delegate, we will see that it's simply some protected method. In order to customize this logic, we will be required to inherit from our currency info attribute, replace this currency info attribute in all our data access classes, or at least in data access classes where we want to customize this logic. And we will be required to override this virtual method to provide some different kind of functionality. If we look how we implement our button, we will see that we have special toggle currency action defined within this attribute, and we are required to add this toggle currency. This is this one button. We are required to add this toggle currency action to all currency enabled graphs. Let me find all references. You see, P order entry, CA order, CA deposit entry, and so on and so forth. A lot of manual copy paste work needs to be done to implement multi-currency. If we return back to our attribute, we will see that we also have a class inherited from PXView class that implement a view that allow us to display this kind of panel in every our screen. And this currency info view class object is injected in every graph. Via reference to a data access class with currency enabled fields is defined. So first of all, this logic is hardly customizable. It is hard to debug this logic, and also consider that all this stuff is executed every time you instantiate a graph. That connects to this currency enabled objects. It doesn't mean that it executed every time when you instantiate, for instance, AP invoice entry graph or SO order entry. No, if you even print a report or run a generic inquiry where you reference sales order or AP invoice, in all these cases, all this logic will be executed, because this attribute knows nothing about if you want just to print a report or display a result set from generic inquiry, or you want to open a maintenance form and probably update content of data access classes. So we decided that we need to use some different approach. This different approach is similar to our extensions used inside Customization Manager, Acumatica Customization Manager. Acumatica Customization Manager Extensibility Framework allows you to extend any data access class in the system and extend any business logic container in the system. So we implemented functionality that allow you to bind later to a specific object, and now when creating your own extensions not connected, functional extensions not connected to a real object, you need just to specify that it is special kind of extension. So if we go to our discount and graph extension implementation, we will see that it's inherited from a special kind of object, px-mapped cache extension, as Sergey mentioned. The same is true for graph object. Notice please that to connect it to real graph, you need to inherit from this class. Having this abstract class, you are able to force programmer who will connect it to real object to override some kind of desired methods to specify desired functionality. You may specify abstract members here, and then when you implement your own object, you will be forced to override to implement this method. But let me show you how it is done already inside our CR module. Wait a bit. CR module, and we need to go to our CR opportunities class, opportunity maintenance. So inside opportunity maintenance, we have a discount graph that is inherited from our shared logic implementation, and we override desired method here. You see. But if we return back to our multi-currency implementation, we will see that we did much more work here to move all the logic from attributes into our extension. So you remember that we are required to add some virtual fields to every object we need to enable to be enabled with multi-currency. If we look into our document implementation, you will see that we simply put here virtual fields, and these virtual fields will be exposed on our screen. Carry view state, currency rate, and other fields. If we want to subscribe these fields, virtual fields, to some events, we are able to just declare appropriate event handlers. Let me show you. Document, for example, field selecting for document currency rate. You just declare an event handler like you do in every graph. So you use the same code style as you use inside your graph. And it is possible to customize this logic with applying extension on top of this functional extension. If you want to implement some button, some button, currency view, toggle currency. You see, you just need to declare an action here, and you can declare a delegate connected to this action and implement this logic that was implemented in a special class, just in this place. If you want to declare some views, you may just put here BQL appropriate BQL selects. Also, we did some job for enabling dependency injection, another level of dependency injection for this kind of multi-currency functionality. We declared IPX currency service interface that provides some kind, all required functionality to run multi-currency. It provides a list of currencies, base currency ID, list of currency rate types, and some other basic functionality like quantity decimal places, price cost decimal places, and other stuff. And also it provides a method that allow you to get currency rate by pair of currencies and currency rate type ID and currency effective date. We provided a sample implementation, standard implementation that is connected to database. You see, it does not require much of code. It does not require as much of code. And if we look into our IPX service implementation and find all references, we will see that we use service locator to get appropriate instance of this interface, and within PX objects DLL, it will be our implementation of multi-currency connected to database. You may substitute it with your own service, and I will show you a bit later how to substitute it with a dummy mock service to allow to run unit testing around this multi-currency functionality. This multi-currency graph currently includes a lot of code that was transferred from multi-currency related attributes. If we look at this extension, it consists of 1,000 lines of code. But if we look into our new implementation of currency attributes, you will see that almost everything was stripped out from these objects. So this code will be executed everywhere in the system, of course, that is still in attributes. But what is in this graph extension will be executed only when you run an appropriate maintenance form. And even more, we consider an approach when we will completely switch this off in case, for example, multi-currency functionality is not enabled within the database. In this case, it will not waste resources at all. And we did the same exercise with all currency-related attributes. You may ask how it will work with your existing customizations. We are trying to preserve your investments you made into code. That is why for some period of time we will support both approaches. And we have not converted everything in Acumatica to this approach as well. So we put this new currency functionality under a special namespace, a special namespace. If you want to utilize this functionality, you need to use PX objects CM extensions namespace instead of PX objects CM. If you have a customization connected to existing objects that we already enabled with this new functionality, for example, if you customize it CR opportunity, adding some currency fields, then you need to replace your using directive with this one, so adding extension, and it will start work out of the box. I am promising you. So it is completely backward compatible. How can you benefit from this new approach? I understand how Acumatica developers can benefit from this, but how can you benefit from this new approach? First of all, if you are working for a big ISV and if you are developing some screens on Acumatica platform from scratch, then consider using these new extensions instead of previous one technology, because it is much simpler to connect them to your new objects, If you just apply a customization to a Acumatica object and apply customization to a single screen, but this customization is huge enough and will benefit from creating tests around this, then still consider using this approach and converting new customization into functional extension, because you will be able to run unit tests with your extension if it is not connected to a real object, but implement some interfaces with later binding to real objects. You see, this document may be connected to sales order, to a P invoice, PO order, CR opportunity, and so on and so forth. But even you implement some single customization to a single screen, and instead of specifying that it is a extension to PX, this is PX cache extension to PX objects SO order, but instead of this specify that it is special mapped caching extension and only later inherit from this class and define that you extend PX sales order, you will be able to create unit tests around your extension, and it might be useful for you. Let me check if I covered everything that I tried to show in my slides. Yes, you see, virtual fields, event subscription, currency view, and so, and toggle currency, and so on. And now let me switch to our new great technology. I was blamed for many years that Acumatica does not contain a useful unit testing framework, and probably with this new approach, with our shared business logic extension, we finally went to unit to test-driven development world. Let me switch back to Visual Studio. Excuse me. To Visual Studio and go to our PX object test project. We had for years already two projects in our solution. One related to DB connected tests and one to non-DB tests, but we do not have a lot of code here because yes, it is tricky to test Acumatic graphs and Acumatic data access classes and Acumatic attributes with unit testing framework because it does all our code does not consist of functions with clear input and clear output. There is an excuse behind this. It is done because Acumatica is, supports customization. Wide customization, deep customization, and you may inject desired functionality, desired fields in any place of our business logic. So if we implement some method that accept some close list of parameters and returns back a closed list of return values, then it is tricky to inject your own custom fields inside this list of parameters, and it is tricky to return back extended list of return values. But with our new extensions, we will be able to connect them to mock objects, and run unit tests against these extensions, simulating interaction with this extension and in the maintenance form. We created basic objects to work with such kind of tests. First of all, we need base document object. It consists from one field. Base object consists only of document ID. We also need detail objects that consists of document ID and detail ID. And we need two business account mocks that consist of, again, only one key field, business account mock base. Then we implement some dependency injectors and mock implementations of our services, to allow you to run this test outside Acumatica site. We developed graph base. We will be using later in our test that consists of document select and details select. Else it mocks access info and connects specific interceptor to emulate user input. When you work from the code, you do not completely simulate user input, because if you put a value into your object, it passes less events than if this value comes from user interface. For example, it bypasses field updating event. This PX UI emulator attribute simulates UI functionality. You will still pass all events as it done from user interface. And we implemented test base that register these services to allow you to execute these tests. If we go to our multi-currency test implementation, we will see that we extend our document mock with several fields related to multi-currency. It is currency info ID, currency ID, and a couple of currency field and base fields. We market them with attributes. Else we implemented detail the same way. It consists of currency info ID and a couple of currency and base fields. And we are required to mock our business account object because business account in multi-currency is used as a source of default currency rate type ID, currency ID, and a couple of flags, bit flags that specify if it is allowed to override currency and it is allowed to override currency rate. Okay, now we need to implement our extension to base graph object. You see, you remember that we have our base graph object that consists of two selects, and we add here one select of our business account base class. Good. Now we mock our currency service. You remember we extracted some part of currency logic to allow you to take this information out of database or take this information from internet or now take this information from just a mock object. So we implemented this one and we registered our service before running our test. We registered it manually because using mock framework is more time consuming, as we found. So we register our services with this one approach, And now we are ready to work, to write our test. We write our test in the completely in the same way as we write business logic. If we want to work with our graph, we create instance of our graph. If we want to do something with our extension, currency extension in this case, we can get extension out of our graph created. If we want to mock some document, we need to insert instance in this document. In the future, it will be available like it is selected from database. If we want to mock our details, we just insert our details. This test is very basic. It analyzes that after inserting of one document and two details, all of them will have identical currency info ID as default currency info ID created by our multi-currency extension, and that currency info ID is less than zero, and it is identical among all objects in our test. Then we simulate persist, and in this method we replace our negative currency info ID with some positive, emulating saving to database when identity value is assigned. And then we analyze that our currency info ID is positive, and still this currency info ID is still the same for all our objects. Next step, we populate currency fields and verify that our base fields are the same as our currency fields. They are the same because we do not replace base currency with some foreign currency. So we insert details, specify currency field values, then we perform update of our objects, and then we assert that our base fields are populated with the same values as our currency fields. Then we emulate persist and check that everything is still correct. Next test, base rounding. We remember that our service return base currency precision of 2 places. So if we specify 3 places, it should be rounded. And yes, it is rounded. Next step, because we are working with graph, we can query states of our fields, not only values of our fields. So we can check if our multi-currency related fields are enabled or disabled, or are enabled or disabled if we do not replace our base currency with some foreign currency. Next step, we populate our currency in our currency info with foreign currency. Why it is foreign currency? Because our base currency is returned from our mock service. And verify if our fields became enabled. Next step, we are testing currency source, our business account, We use inline data attribute here to run this method with different sets of input parameters, and verify that our enabled disabled state is similar to our enabled disabled bit flags received from our currency source, and our currency rate and currency ID is identical what we received. Next step, tests works with different currency rates and analyze if we calculate base currency properly. So if we rebuild our test, we will be able to run them, and you will see that it is quite convenient to run this test under Visual Studio instead of waiting for regression test results. Until this compiling, somebody already left us. Okay.
Hey, Andrew, just a quick time check. We're about 20 minutes over. Just wanted to see how much more, just to let people know how much longer we're going to be going.
I probably will be able to finish in 20 minutes. Is it okay?
Okay.
Good. I'm not sure how to minimize my panel. I can. Okay, if we go to Windows Test Explorer, and search for multi-currency, most probably we will find these tests. Something goes wrong. Probably I need to reload my Visual Studio. Sorry for this little delay. Let me check that we have appropriate version, because it is available only in 2018 R2. It is already available in preview 1. So you may take preview 1 and review what we did there, what we did already there. I hope that Test Explorer will work well this time. And let's go to test. Go to Window, Test Explorer, and wait until it discovers tests. Again, something is wrong. Probably you should trust me that it works, but I have difficulties with Visual Studio. Let's blame Microsoft as usual. My next topic will be connected to what we want to do. Oh, you see, it is better now. So I may try. I mentioned Microsoft. It immediately started working. We have a spy on our session, I think. Let's wait, because I already ran rebuilding all the solution. I hope it will allow me to run this this time. Still discovering. Let's specify filter, multi-currency filter. Wait a bit. Let's finish it. No, still not. Yeah. So it will be running now. First test takes some time, but later it will be executed almost immediately. You see, it took several milliseconds to execute every test. Okay, let's finish with this functional extension and switch to our new functionality we want to deliver with new release. It will be available in preview 2, and it is object layer in BQL. BQL is a special kind of object relation mapping framework that mostly was developed to allow retrieving metadata at design time, and it does not require instantiating of these queries to be able to recognize what tables it is connected, what fields are exposed, what parameters are required, and so on and so forth. So when you work with BQL from your graph, it is quite convenient to just specify your desired selects, and then connect your user interface elements to these selects. So if we go to AI invoice entry, we have a lot of selects here, and we can explore them in design time, and we are not required to instantiate graph object to do this, and so on and so forth. But when you work from the code, it is not so convenient. So we decided to enhance our BQL technology. As Mike mentioned, it will be BQL version 2, and we are adding object layer to BQL. Before, BQL worked with text, and you will be able to implement your own common preparent events, and you will be able to implement your own BQL constructs, and you will be able to implement your own parse methods and return text back from these events, and it was put into command that comes into database server. If we switch to old version of Acumatica, 2000 17, and go to DB field attributes, PXDB calls attributes. These attributes allow you to work with some formulas passed to SQL Server. We will see that here we combine some text from parameters of these attributes, do some text manipulations, and then return this back into field name. Unfortunately, Acumatica requires further processing of this text because we need to add company ID restriction to all this text. We need to add company mask restriction. We need to add some optimizations required to work with MySQL server that is not so smart as MS SQL. And all this is done with text manipulation procedures that requires additional time. In our new version of Acumatica that will be released in September, of course, instead of manipulating texts, we introduced object layer that allow you to combine desired statement from some kind of object constructions, you see here, and return back named SQL expression. And then we will be manipulating with this object model instead of manipulating with text. It will be faster and will be more secure, and it will allow you us further enhancements. One of them will be implementing a language integrated query for BQL. Before I switch to this topic, I need to notify you that customizations to command preparing events and customization made that contains any parse method will not be able to be compiled with our new version, and you will be required to redo this functionality. We will provide help articles on how to do this, and we will provide our assistance for doing this. In regards to implementing language integrating query, let's switch to code that operates with complex BQL queries. And I will try to show you how it is sometimes hard to do in BQL and what kind of functionality is desired for application developers. You see, we have quite a complex query here. And we need to sort the result of this query with some custom expression. It is possible to do with BQL, but unfortunately it requires a lot of work. You need to declare special fields, virtual fields. You need to surround it, annotate it with PXDB calls attribute. You need then to put reference to these fields with BQL field to your BQL query in order by clause. And when a developer do not want to implement all this stuff, what he does? He simply calls select and then work with the result set returned back with link. Unfortunately, before our upcoming release, this select went directly to database and retrieves everything from database, and then works with returned result set in memory. And it was a big source of issues related to performance in our product. With our object-oriented approach, we will be able to postpone this round trip to database until we call first of default method. So we will be able to return a special object from this select, and then manipulating with language integrated query with this object will adjust future SQL text instead of working through dataset. You may review this on our slide. So instead of this query, we may connect, comment out a couple of conversion string of codes and manipulate with our let me try to switch my pointer to laser pointer, and we manipulate with our result set with linku expressions, and these expressions are just our object model, and then this object model produces desired SQL that comes to database at this point only. We will support query syntax as well. Generally, we are going to use Relink library. Most probably, it will be available in beta preview. So object model will come with preview 2, and I hope that beta will contain a LINQ implementation, that will make querying database from code much more convenient than before. Else, because of this delayed database connection, we'll be able some performance enhancements. For instance, if somebody wrote code like this, PO order, to retrieve the very first PO order or check existence of PO order, one PO order in the database, somebody may wrote some select like this. PO order, select graph. And now it will come to database and retrieve all PO orders, and then will select only one record and discard everything in the tail. But with our new approach, it will wait until this conversion requested and will add top one to our select, what is covered in this statement. This is what is related to our database related work. And my last topic is related to our mobile sitemap. It is important as well because everybody who customizes sitemap will need to know that we switched to new approach, mobile sitemap definition language. We supported it before, but currently we converted all our XML definition into this language. We switched to database storage of this mobile sitemap. It will allow you to keep your sitemaps per tenant on per tenant basis, so you will be able to have different sitemaps for different tenants in your site. So let me show you how it works. Briefly. I will show you briefly. So we need probably to Relogin. No, it works. Wonderful. If you go to customization projects, add a customization project to customize sitemap. Call it mobile. Save. Open. We will see that we have mobile application here, and we have several options. For example, we may want to update existing screen. Let's update AP bills. It will bring us a screen where we can put our adjustments. We have live preview on the right side, and we have error list on the bottom side. We can start updating our screen, update container, for example, document summary. Let me keep delete field, remove field status, and let's save. Let's wait. You see status field disappeared. Good. Let's remove a whole container. We discussed discounts. Let's try to remove discount container, but make a mistake. Oops, sorry, not contain, but container. You see, we have an error. There is no discount container in our current context. So let's specify proper name, tail, save. Container disappeared, there is no error currently. And you will able, of course, distribute this customization, and you will able to publish it to multiple tenants, of course, not only one, or remove your customization from multiple tenants. We also will provide a conversion tool to convert your existing customization, probably made with SQL, to a new one technology. So let me show how it works, and it will be my last topic. Let me switch to Acumatica installation folder, Acumatica ERP, data. And if I run HCXA, I will be able to use new command, mobile site map. I will specify convert shortcut, and first of all I need to specify what I want to convert. Let's use my prior websites, XML, pure site, app data, and mobile. And let's put it into my document folder. Let's see, users and int documents mobile MSD. Good. And let's go to my documents. Let's refresh Let's refresh. Where is my mobile? Sorry for this documents. I'm afraid it was put into incorrect place. So let's go to users. See users. See users. Oops. Everybody is already tired and probably me too. See. It is hidden. Let's redo our attempt. And see users and int. Or C temp. Let's put it into C temp and specify name mobile MSD. Let's go to C temp and try to find our file mobile MSD, and it is converted from XML to our new presentation. You will be able to copy and paste your own work did with XML to convert it into new customization package. Probably we will be able to provide automatic customization package creation from this tool, but I am not completely sure. Thank you everybody for your attention. This was my last topic. I hope that you will come back after, because many of you are developers and many of you have your own ideas how to extend Acumatica framework with unit test functionality and other desired new technologies, and your feedback is welcome. We are at the very beginning of this road with unit tests, with language integrated query, and your feedback will be very, very appreciated. Thank you. Bye.